let's see. By the way, so let me tell people later, just give you a heads up. Later on, there's going to be an opportunity in the chat box for you to be able to send questions in if you have questions about anything that I'm talking about. So go ahead and do that as you're doing it, just so you know. And then someone in my very high-tech world, they will be sending me love messages about what your questions are. So I'm not texting with my children, writing my grocery list or anything else. They simply will be communicating with me. All right. Any people behind the screen? Am I ready to go? Are you guys ready to be happy? All right. Let's see. Another minute. Another 10 seconds. Give a few more seconds for people. And I'll tell you a funny story. I had a whole opening and I remembered something. So I'll talk about that. Okay, they're telling me that I can go, so I'm going to go. So welcome. I'm Sarah Heiner. I'll introduce myself formally in a minute, but I'm so glad that you're here. So as I was getting ready for this, I remembered a story. When I was 5 years old, my grandmother, her line was always, "Is everybody happy?" And there we were in the car driving home from dinner, and it was the winter time, and my grandmother had this big fuzzy coat, and I'm all snuggled up with her. And she always had little boxes of chiclet gum, and she gave them out to all of us. And I'm snuggled up, and she says, "Is everybody happy?" And it's so funny now that 50 years later, more than 50 years later, that I'm now talking about happiness, and that has become one of the biggest missions of my life. Bottom line, for 40 years has been giving people information, health information, money information, relationship information, to all help them have better lives. And in the end, it's really about being happy and at the top end of it. So this is actually the culmination of those 50 years of my life since grandma, 50 years of the business's life, and bringing it all to a higher level, a new level of what we all need. Everybody wants to be happy. It's been a really tough time. So I'm glad that you took the time today to join us. I'm glad you took the time for you actually to try and find your happiness in this very interesting, challenging time. So let's just say we are drowning in misery. It doesn't take much for me to tell you that if you look around, there's a lot of unhappiness out there. The COVID obviously has created incredible angst and frustration, but even beyond that is family challenges, work challenges, you name it. We all have a lot of things that we could say could make us unhappy. And yet there's still a possibility in the midst of all of that to be able to be happy. The truth of the matter is that you actually control your happiness. You have the choice. We all have the choice in any situation of how to respond. We can either respond that because the traffic was bad on the way to the grocery store and you were late and you didn't get whatever it was, that's a reason to be unhappy. Or you can go, it happened, but that's not going to ruin your day. So we have a lot of lessons to learn about our control over happiness, our control of how do we react to situations, and where do we really want to be and how do we want to be? And we put all those pieces together. One reminder, a lot of people kind of are, they just don't know how to be happy anymore. Everything is just kind of a sadness and a frustration. But here's the thing to remember. We all were happy. Remember, think about toddlers. Think about 4-year-olds. They are happy. They are free. They're running. We all knew it. It's all inside of us. And somewhere through the course of time, through the course of life, it's just been squeezed out of us. The pressures of performance, the pressures of work, the pressures of school, all that joy kind of got squeezed out as we became obliged and responsible and adults. I talk to my grown-up children all the time about how hard adulting is. They thought it was free. No, it's actually hard. But somewhere inside of us and all of us is still that child that knows how to be free. And our bodies, the mechanism, I'm going to talk later a lot about the connection between our mind, our body, our spirit, and that our bodies have the biochemistry that can help us be happy. It's interconnected. It's not disconnected. So that's where we're going on this. All right, let me introduce Bottom Line a little bit, just tell you who we are. So Bottom Line Personal, Bottom Line, we've been publishers, been providing information for more than 50 years. A lot of you are familiar with it, and I'm so glad that you're here because I know we sent notes out, emails out to our customers. And we've spent 50 years talking to top experts, getting information to help put everybody in control of your life and put you into action in your life. And what I'm realizing is, what I've realized again through all of this, so it's all been vertical. So we talked to the health expert, and we talked to the money expert, and they're all in their boxes. And what I've had the privilege of doing as I've been in my role as president for the last 13 years is to take it, to go beyond that, to realize that across those dots, when you crisscross them, when you bring them together, that's where happiness lives. It's a little bit of money, a little bit of health, a little bit of relationships, but it's in those, bringing those dots together. And I've had the privilege through these years to be able to look across those dots. When I'll talk a little bit later about the medical world and how they've put so many parts of, you've all gone to specialists, right? So you go to a skin specialist, and you go to a stomach specialist, you go to an arm specialist, whatever it is, that we've so put our world in boxes, and the medical community has broken us down and disassociated our bodies and our emotions and our spirits. But we're not just flailing pieces of flesh hanging off of a body. It's actually interconnected. And when you cross those verticals and connect those pieces, that's where magic happens. What am I up to? Okay, so I do have a deck underneath me, so I can't remember everything. So there are 3 lessons that are going to change your perspective on happiness today, and that's what we're going to talk about in detail. Number 1 for happiness, as I started to say, happiness is not happening out there. It's not what's happening at the grocery store. It's not what's happening when your boss is, unreasonable. That's not the source of your unhappiness. It's how you deal with it and how you how you respond to it. What do you do with it here, and what do you do with it here? We'll go into more detail in a second. The second thing is what I call the diabolical perfection trap. There's so much pressure on perfection, and let's see what we're doing with it. And when you let go of that trap, then you don't have to be unhappy, but being imperfect. And 3, as I've been talking about, the power of the mind and the body, because it's not just dissociated pieces of flesh. It is one connected system. And I want to add a 4th thing. Actually, I did the slides, I did 3 things, but there's actually a 4th thing that I think is really important. My definition of happiness is not your definition of happiness. Everybody's happiness is different. And when you realize that, when you can figure out what your happiness is, what will make you happy, and we're working on this program. Again, it's been for years, so I'm talking about it now, and then we've got this bigger program, the Awakening Happiness Program, that helps people to learn and realize that there's no single definition of happiness, and that help people to find what that is and release it from within you. All right, specifically, let's see. So what's happening out there? So let's break down these 3 things. What's happening out there is not the source of your unhappiness. We live in this world programmed for misery. The news is miserable. Social media is miserable. The negativity is miserable. Newspapers, they've tried to sell good news, but nobody wants to buy good news. They buy miserable news. We can't take our eyes off a car crash. What movies do people watch? Death, destruction, bad marriages, evil bad guys, sex, drugs, rock and roll. We are programming ourselves for unhappiness, and that's just not healthy. Our brains are wired for it, and we've gotten ourselves into the habit of unhappiness. So we can just as easily get into the habit of happiness. Let's talk about perfection. The diabolical trap of perfection. So I don't know about you, but you've heard all these things about social media and the what I call Facebook perfect, right? That you have to have the perfect house and the perfect family and the perfect family vacation photos, and take pictures of the perfect food that you cooked. My food looks like a big heap of brown and green. It doesn't look so pretty, but we have this grand pressure from the outside world to be perfect. There's been a lot of studies and a lot of talk about the harm that's done to young people in particular since social media came up. There's always been keep up with the Joneses, but there's this increasing pressure from social media that nobody thinks that they can live up to it, because you see everybody's Facebook perfect life. Guess what? They're not. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't see what they looked like before they put on that perfect dress. They didn't look so pretty before they put that on. But we have this perception that we all have to be perfect like that. And again, that's creating our unhappiness. We're doing it to ourselves. We have choices of it. Another part of perfection is what we've called, what I think about as the intolerance of imperfection. Right. So we have this false expectation of our bodies. And let me talk about health in particular. So we think that because we have an ache or a pain, we're broken. Because we get a fever, I was talking about this yesterday with regard to COVID vaccines. Because you get a fever when you react to a vaccine, you think you're broken. No, it's your body's immune system. The fever does something. That's your body working. Our bodies are these magical factories that give us constant feedback and know what to do when we give it the right fuel. But we become intolerant of our bodies doing things. We've become intolerant of our bodies thinking that they're not working properly. So I watched this really frightening and important movie called Medicating Normal. And it was talking about how the medical industry has started to call it diseaseify our emotions. Starting in 1980, the American Psychiatric Association adopted a disease model for emotional issues. So no longer could you just feel sad. Suddenly you were depressed. You couldn't just feel grief when somebody died. You're going to feel bad for a while. And yet they wanted to give people medication rather than let them go through their grief. So that we're not allowing ourselves and allowing our bodies to do what they know how to do. And it's creating a problem for us. The fact of the matter is that being imperfect makes us perfect humans. My girls joke with me all the time, I'll make a mistake. And of course, anyone who has children out there, you know that your children give you all the feedback in the world. Thank you very much. You can't mess up on anything. And every time they do that and they catch me in a mistake or a problem, I go, that just makes me a perfect human. Isn't that so great? Because we don't have to beat ourselves up. We don't have to kill ourselves for being imperfect, right? We have this world where we don't want anyone to feel bad. Participation trophies. You know, in the old days, there were winners and losers. Now we don't want anyone to feel bad. It's okay to feel bad. It doesn't mean you're unhappy. It just means that you have to learn a lesson. It's how we frame it. It's how you learn. Anybody who's succeeded in life, they talk about how the biggest growth came from challenges and came from places, I'll call it, when they felt bad or some problem happened. But that's how you grow. We can't isolate ourselves. So we need to understand that feeling bad is not unhappy. You can still feel unhappy and have challenges. You can still feel happy and have a problem in your day. You ever talk to somebody and they say, how was your day? And they go on and on about, God, their day was ruined because the butcher took too long and the prices at the gas station went up, whatever it is. But that didn't have to ruin their day. It didn't have to make them unhappy. It just had to be something happened. How do you process it? And as I said before, everyone's view of happiness is unique. So it's not a one size cookie cutter. So there's not going to be a perfect definition of happiness out there. It's what's right for you. All right, mind, body. This is really the biggest thing that I've realized. I've actually got a book that I've been developing on this topic about the fact that, again, our bodies and our emotions are these great, I learned something in math years ago called a Mobius strip, right? So it's this continuous thing, this continuous feedback loop. And as I was just saying, like we've disassociated our minds and our bodies. So when it comes to depression, the doctors have said that's about a serotonin problem. So let me give you a drug that dials up or down your serotonin. But the fact of the matter is that our serotonin is produced in our digestive system. And if you have a digestive problem, then you may have a serotonin problem. You might not have an emotion problem. It might actually be you have a digestion problem, which is affecting that happy hormone. So it's not letting you feel good, right? It's not necessarily a thing that needs a drug to fix. It's your body, the feedback. So you have a digestive problem, your serotonin doesn't get released. You don't feel happy. You don't feel all great. There are things that you can do if you realize that and see it, you can work on your digestion. There are things you can do that can help you release the happy hormones. It's a choice that we have. One of the worst things we can do is stress. One of the most diabolical things in our bodies is cortisol. When you're stressed, think about when you get stressed, when something happens to you and you suddenly get tight, you suddenly get a headache. That's cortisol. Cortisol suffocates all of our happiness. It suffocates our happiness hormones. It helps us survive when a saber-toothed tiger comes to attack us. But on an ongoing basis, if every time you're waiting on that grocery line, if every time your boss ticks you off, if every time your spouse does that annoying thing that they always do that drives you crazy, and you bathe yourself in cortisol, it suffocates your body. It puts sludge in your fuel system and it suffocates the happy hormones that we have that allow us to feel good. Endorphins, you've all heard about endorphins. Oxytocin, the hormone of connection. Dopamine, serotonin. All those things are chemicals in our body that we can control. We can navigate those if we know what to do to turn those on, and if we can know what to do to turn off the cortisol. So let me tell you where I started with all this. So about 25 years ago or so, I was stressed. I ate terribly, and I didn't take care of myself. I didn't take care of myself probably for the first 25, 30 years of my life. I exercised. I always was fitness. But I grew up a child of the 60s living on sugar, Pop-Tarts, Fruit Loops, you name it. It was like magic food in the 60s. Well, by the time I hit my early 30s, I had hives from head to toe. And I'd had congestion. I just I was very allergic, I'll call it. So I wake up one night and I've got hives from head to toe and chest pains, and I end up in the emergency room. So I go to the emergency room, thankfully, no cardiac issues at all. So they gave me Benadryl, they gave me prednisone, they gave me Xanax, and they gave me the number for a psychiatrist. And they sent me away for all my body problems. And the prednisone actually helped me. I ended up developing anxiety from it. I had a huge panic attack one night on the prednisone because I was not tolerating it well. Sent me into a problem of anxiety for years. When I went off the prednisone, my hives came right back. I called my doctor, said, "What's going on?" He said, "Go back on it." It was all about suppressing those hives. It wasn't fixing it and looking what was underneath or what was going on. It was, let's shut down those hives. They told me to get rid of my dog. I had a collie. Okay. They said, "You're allergic to it." The dog was 12 years old. I didn't suddenly get allergic to my dog. There was something else going on. I went to the psychiatrist. He offered me Zoloft. I said, "No, thank you." I would talk to him every week. I'd say, "Why do I feel bad?" And he said, "I don't know, keep talking." And nothing got fixed. Someone introduced me to a naturopathic physician who has been a medical contributor for Bottom Line for years, Dr. Andrew Rubman, and he's phenomenal and brilliant. And he looked at me and he said, "Get rid of your allergist. Your body has not been taken care of well. Your fuel is down. Your system is beaten up in all sorts of ways." And he helped me suddenly realize that it wasn't just my body was broken, but my stress was affecting me. My emotions were affecting me. He saw me connect the dots. As he was helping me clean my body of the toxins that were in there and the yeast that had overgrown, there was one night I had come home and my lip was swollen. It looked like I'd done 12 rounds with Muhammad Ali. And I called him and said, "My lip's swollen, what's going on?" And he said, "It's okay, that's toxins dying off. And that's okay. And here's what you do." And you put some hot Epsom salts on and hot water and it'll come down. And it came down. And that was the first that I realized, like, a whole different understanding of our bodies and the magic of our bodies and how it knows what to do. So if we can find the mind-body connection, if you can find and understand that we have the power in our bodies to feel good, to be strong, that when you have health, then you're able to do so many other things. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything, right? We did a study actually recently. We surveyed, as I'm working on this happiness program and happiness project. And we did a survey of our readers and we said, if it gave them a question, if only blank, then I'd be happy. What was that answer? And the number one thing, not surprisingly, was health. That if we could have our health, number one. Number two was connection. People miss people. We want it. We need people. We need connection. So if we could have health and we could have community, then that would bring happiness to people. So therefore, how do you find happiness? Well, first of all, you give yourself permission to be happy. It's really easy to feel guilty if you feel happy. There's so much unhappiness. There's so much, very sad. 500,000 people have now died of COVID, which is tragic and horrible. But we can't live in guilt. That doesn't mean because people have had tragedy, because everyone has tragedy, everybody has problems. But because someone else has problems, that doesn't mean you're not allowed to be happy. I always talk about that. If I've got gifts, if I've got good health, if I've had success, then it's my responsibility to share that, to bring that back to the community, to help others to experiencing it. So it's okay to feel happy. It's okay to give yourself permission to be happy. I realized the other day, probably 10 or 15 years ago, I just wrote down on my notepad, it's okay to be happy. because I was still intense and I was still burdened and I still have responsibilities to so many at work and home and family and kids. You know the feeling. You all have that. And I had so much burdens, and my jobs would my roles would overwhelm my just relaxing and being happy. And I wrote down, it's okay to be happy. And I could feel great. I could feel my body release just in doing that, to give myself permission to be happy and to think about it, to take that moment to give yourself permission. So just coming here today, you've given yourself permission to start to learn about it and to let yourself be happy, which is huge, totally huge. The other thing is, again, to find community and mentors to help you be happy, because if happy was easy, we wouldn't all be so unhappy. And sometimes we fall into a pattern. We're surrounded by people who like to be unhappy or who wallow in their unhappiness. Again, how many times, especially as we get older, you get together with your friends, what's the topic? Your aches, your pains, your diseases, someone else's diseases? That's sticking in the unhappy versus sticking in the what can we do? Yes, my knee hurts. Okay, so I can't necessarily climb that mountain, but I can go for a walk. Yes, we have the pandemic, so I can't go to the store, but what can I do? What can we do instead? We don't have to be victims of the world around us. We have the power. So giving yourself permission to be happy and finding a community that will help you do it. Because if you don't, it doesn't mean get rid of your friends. Obviously, don't get rid of your family, but find people that will help you be supportive and encourage you and support you in your dreams of going, hey, what would make me happy? What else could I try? How do I step out of what I've been doing? So that's what we're here about, awakening that happiness. So let me tell you about my big project called Awakening Happiness. This program, we've developed a program. I've spent the last year working on it. And again, I've spent 40 years, the company's been spending 40 years on it. The last 8 years as president of the company, I'm really looking at how do we take our information and broaden it? What's the bottom line life? What's the brand mean in people's lives? And, I kind of coined this thing called the bottom line life, which is living empowered and advocating and taking action. But even on top of that, I realized is happiness, because that's really the pinnacle. That's what we all want. So that's where we are, and we're developing this program. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. I want to introduce someone really special to you, Rebecca Shannon House, who has been developing this with me. Hi, Rebecca. Let's make sure.
Hey, Sarah.
I'm so glad you're with Rebecca. So I had to drag Rebecca. Rebecca does not like being in front of the camera. But she bravely has come out in public to talk. So Rebecca, let me just introduce her for a second, and then we're going to talk. She and I are going to talk a little bit about what we've been developing with Awakening Happiness. So Rebecca is the director of the Health and Wellness channel at Bottom Line. She's the extremely amazing editor of our publication, Bottom Line Health, for nearly 20 years. She's a certified health coach. And about a year ago, I said, you know what? I'm going to plop you out of being an editor in Bottom Line Health, and I want you to help me in developing this new area, to help us develop this wellness, to help step out of the print world and bring it to life in another way. So we've actually been working on our Facebook Lives, and we worked on an immunity program. So it's been a really great year with Rebecca in terms of working together and kind of stepping out of her paradigm. And, again, we're talking about finding your happiness. You got to step out of your paradigms. And that's exactly what I've done to Rebecca. Said, hey, step out of your paradigm. So Rebecca, just share for a moment what the last year, like what you've observed in the last year, like what this whole experience was to you, and what you've seen about the Bottom Line brand and like this next level and stage for it.
So, this all happened, of course, during the pandemic, Sarah. So, we're all going through this period of adapting to this incredible environment of uncertainty and not knowing what's going on. But for me personally, the good thing about it is that it's given me some time to kind of, step back from the day-to-day, just constant, errands and getting to the office and all this sort of thing, and kind of reflect on this whole question and this happiness crisis that you've identified. And when I look at what I've done with Bottom Line Health over the years, with assigning and editing articles, they have primarily focused on preventing and treating chronic diseases, helping people avoid or treat as best as possible high blood pressure or diabetes or arthritis or whatever it might be. And in the course of, working on this program with you, I've looked at things a little bit differently in terms of what it really means to be holistically healthy, to, of course, have physical health, but also to, have well-being in general. And of course, me, I wanted to look at the research, and there is some of it I was aware of, but there were new things that I found when I really got a chance to dig deep into it. And, of course, or I shouldn't say, of course, maybe it's not so well known, but, happiness is associated with longer lifespans. Happiness is associated with better heart health. Happiness is associated with less pain. I mean, there are all sorts of health benefits associated with happiness. And so, once I looked at it that way, we really have an obligation to our customers to open this world up to them. If you want full health, happiness has to be a part of it. And the timing is, of course, perfect.
You said it so perfectly. You should have been doing half. I should have been sitting in the back half. That was perfectly said, because it's so true. All those health benefits of the body and feeling good. Talk for a second about the experts, because whatever we do, Bottom Line is always known for the experts. And that's always been, one of your thrills is working with the experts and finding just the right experts. And in Awakening Happiness in the program, experts, of course, will be part of that.
Right. And you're absolutely right. Finding the best expert for whatever the topic is has always been the thing that I enjoy most and find the most challenging, actually, in what I have been doing. And then in this new program also, because once you look into the research, once you look at the topic, there are all sorts of people out there. And so identifying the people who are really the thought leaders, the ones who've done the important research, the ones who are at the forefront of whatever the current thinking is, those are the ones who I always want to go to. And I think we have a good track record of doing that. And the other thing with Bottom Line that's been so fantastic, I think, is that we go to MDs, we go to DOs, we go to naturopathic physicians, as you mentioned, we go to yoga therapists, we go to psychologists, we go to everybody who can play an important role in a person's health, and now in this case, a person's happiness.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I was just going to say that even going back to what you're talking about in the print world, where back to the verticals, right? So we would talk about diabetes, and we talk about kidney disease, and we talk about liver disease, which was important, and people have kidney disease and they want to solve that. But bringing it to this next higher level, and Bottom Line has had the privilege and freedom of being able to find the best experts everywhere. I mean, I'll call it, it knows no bounds. We check the credentials very carefully, but full health is about understanding all of those aspects. I have a friend who was recently diagnosed with cancer. I'm sure everybody has family and friends who've been diagnosed. And you go to your oncologist and you talk to the surgeon, but look at how many people are on the team to get over cancer. Cancer in particular, right? So that it's nutritionists and dietitians and meditation, like so many aspects. And I think that's a great example of how the universe of information that's out there. And again, so then within happiness and with Awakening Happiness, same thing, that we're going to go across to all these different areas to provide information and all the little tidbits of information that some of it may work for people, some of it may not. Like part of it is being exposed. Sometimes I say, I started to say this before, I believe people have more power over their lives than they know than they realize that they do. So that we end up being victims. And one of the challenges is you don't know what to ask. You don't know the information to go to. You don't know where to go. So that by giving tastes of so many different pieces of information, then that people don't realize, you don't even realize that there's certain types of therapies out there, certain types of therapists, certain types of body manipulations. And we're able to do that, which I think I love the fact that we have such great access to so many great people.
Well, Sarah, I have to add there, you in interviewing them do tremendous preparation and research. So when you interview these experts, and I've now been involved in doing some of the other interviews, the live interviews that you do on a regular basis, and the preparation you do is incredible, and you take the conversation to a level that a lot of these experts I don't think are accustomed to with ordinary interviewers. And so I think that you ask the questions that people don't necessarily even know to ask. And I think the experts rise to the occasion because all of a sudden they're having a conversation on a level that ordinarily they just don't have when they're being interviewed.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm grateful every time when we used to do these expert dinners. And I was always so grateful to be able to develop personal relationships with these experts,
Right.
to make them feel comfortable, to ask the questions. I'm just a person, right? So that I'm a professional. I research heavily. I'm extremely, I have very high integrity in terms of the quality of the work, but I'm also a human. And I do love asking questions that people wish they could ask, but if they had the access to, they can't. And, and I'll challenge, we don't have advertised, I have no qualms challenging somebody that even the top expert goes, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So, which is great. I mean, it's a real privilege to be able to play the role and help people to find those truths. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's actually in our Awakening Happiness program, which we love. All right. So the big thing about that, you started to say that happiness is unique. And this is not about a formula. It's not a diet. This is not a happiness diet that in 28 days, that you're going to do sit-ups 4 times a day. You're going to eat blueberries and you're going to walk in the sunshine for 8 minutes a day. And then you're suddenly going to have this thing called happiness. No, this is going to provide for you expert information, new pieces of information, new programs and prototypes of things that you didn't know existed so that you can put them together into your toolkit of finding happiness. So let's talk a little bit about, Rebecca, talk about the experts. So twice a week, we'll talk to experts a couple times a week, once informational and once experiential.
Right. And the informational will be for some of the early sessions that have already been planned. There'll be a more general overview of a topic that's related to happiness. And that's one of the things that's been so fascinating to me is getting into the research and seeing all the different dimensions of happiness. One of the topics that we want to look at is there's some new research that's been done where the researcher believes that doctors should be asking their patients when they come in for a checkup, how happy are you? It's that this particular researcher feels that it's that important to a person's well-being. So we might have a session that will talk about that and that research. Then we will have later in the week, as you mentioned, an experiential session. And those are going to be so much fun because you'll be kind of walking people through in real time experiences that will contribute to a person's happiness. And the thing that's, I think, so fun about this is that it's across the board. I mean, there's everything from, your posture affects your happiness. So an experiential session on that. Exactly. We got to sit up straighter. Essential oils you can use for happiness. There are particular yoga poses that contribute to happiness. You can make your own, music soundtrack that's personalized to you, as you said, for happiness. And then, of course, there's the journaling in the middle of the week as well. So I won't talk too much about that because I can see that's coming up. Yeah.
I think that's a really unique aspect of this. But yes, I mean,
right.
Again, people think that they have to be Facebook happy. They have to be doing cartwheels all day long, and that's happy. But it's not necessarily. So, and there are all these different tools that they use. One thing we have, in the book that we've been talking about, and we'll talk about in the program as well. Again, I was talking about the role of cortisol and how it can smother you, right? So how it can suffocate you. And these tactics, whether it's a song, whether it's alternate nostril breathing, whether there's all sorts of things that you can do the minute you feel that cortisol fly on you, that you can stop it and that you can avoid it from destroying your health and your happiness. And that's the, again, if nothing else happens when you walk away from the seminar today, start paying attention to your body. Start paying attention to how you feel the minute you get angry, the minute something riles you, the minute you get afraid. Feel your body tense up and watch that. And that's your body talking to you. And if you can start noticing that and then figure out, need to stop it. And these are a lot of these things we're going to do, is help people become aware of what our bodies are doing, what our emotions are doing, and how these different tools that people can use to get in control, to raise up the happy hormones and to calm down those stressors, which I think is huge. And so let's talk about the community. So I talked before about the importance of community, that you can't do this alone. So Waking in Happiness is a closed community in Facebook and on Zoom. We'll do some things on Zoom, we'll do some things on Facebook, all of it so that you're not alone. You can interact. You can interact with me. You can interact with the experts. You can ask questions of them. And I'm hoping that through time, you can interact with each other, ask each other questions, because when we're going to talk about this journaling exercise, when somebody shares about what they've experienced that day or what they've learned, other people will also have experienced similar things. And I'm hoping that it'll build, because you feel a little weird. You feel like, well, is this real? Is it not? How come I tried to be happy, but everybody around me just wanted to still complain? So you want to find a safe place. And I'm excited that we can provide a place where you can have like-minded people, because it's hard to find that often. All right, let's talk about, so go back, my friend, behind the curtain to my, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. All right, so journaling. Everybody wants to journal, right? Everybody says, I know we should journal. Rebecca, you've written stories and so many articles about the power of journaling, the importance of journaling. But I'm Sarah Heiner. I intend to journal often, and I do it sometimes, right? Rebecca Shannon House, do you journal?
I do journal. I do.
Every day? Good for you. I do it. But I start my day. So there's all sorts of definitions of journaling, right? There's, and I think people get intimidated by it, right? Just like there's different forms of meditation. And people say, I can't meditate, I don't have that time. Well, there are different ways you can do it. There are different forms of journaling. So actually, I think a really unique thing that we're doing is there's a journal that people get. There's journaling as part of this daily journaling. Not too much time though. Just a little bit, 10 minutes a day, but once a week. If you don't do anything else, once a week as a group, we're going to journal together. Half hour, 20 minutes, that's all. A little bit of time alone, a little bit of discussion that's going to be inspired by the expert that we talk to, the topic of the week, that you can then explore within yourself. And I think it's important. There's the part of journaling where it's frame your day. And there's the part of journaling where it's release your day. So we have something actually that's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes in the morning where you frame your day, set a goal for the day. And then at the end of the day where you just release it. What was good? What do you need to let go of? What was your frustrations? But you don't want to get stuck in the frustration. So you go back up and you circle your happy thing. This isn't writing passages. This isn't writing long college essays, because you're busy. I'm busy. We don't have time, right? So the great thing about what we're doing with this, Rebecca, one of the favorite things is that it's not too much and not too little time. It's just half hour a day on the longest day.
And the daily inspirations, Sarah, too. I mean, that is tied in with the journaling, and that, I think that relates back to what you were saying earlier. We are, programming ourselves from like the moment almost that we wake up, that we look at our phones, we look at social media, we read the news, we hear the news. It's overwhelmingly negative information that we're using to frame our days. And, the daily inspiration is just this really quick, albeit uplifting, but it's a positive way to frame your day rather than a negative way. It can be a quote, it can be a piece of factual information of an action that you can do to promote happiness in your life. And the nice thing is that the daily inspiration ties into the top part of the journal. So people will receive a daily inspiration in their email or on the Facebook page, and they can look at it. It takes all of 30 seconds, and then exactly. And then you jot down a few things, actions you might want to take during the day based on that inspiration. and it frames your day in a positive way. And I have to say, I've shifted my journaling to be using this method, and it really makes a difference. Absolutely. I mean, if it's just a small step that you can take, I know one of your favorite things is the smiling activity. You smile at 3 people, it just resets your whole interaction with that person for the rest of the day, so it's wonderful.
Each of these inspirations and each of these tidbits is a skill that you'll be able to develop, some tactic that you'll be able to use to be able to boost the happy hormones to help you feel good, or to help, watch it when you have those cortisol rushes. So we talked about the smiling thing, one of my most favorite things to do. If you just sit there alone, put on a smile, see how you feel. It releases those happy hormones. Might be, we talked about one day might be about a color. It might be about the color yellow, which is a stimulating and a happy color. And the challenge may be simply find the color yellow that day. Find that distraction, just little things, little habits. BJ Fogg, I did a podcast with years ago. He's a great professor at Stanford University. And his thing is about tiny habits. And if you can develop small habits, smiling, saying hi, step out of your comfort zone, whatever it is, little things that can add up to a lot and change your day. One last piece I want to talk about is accountability. We are obsessed with how are we doing, and it's important to track yourself. So when you come in, as I said, we did this little survey of if only this, how would you feel? If only this happened, then you could be happy. On any given day, how happy are you? Just to watch yourself. So we're going to have it's not grading, it's not failing, it's just being able to watch your progress, kind of like Weight Watchers, where you can watch your progress. So there's an element to this that's important of feedback, giving yourself feedback, watching yourself grow, watching if you go, if yesterday you said, I'm an 8 on happiness, but today I'm a 6 on happiness, they go, well, what happened? What's different? Just to be able, again, it's the feedback loop. That's the most important thing to me constantly. The feedback loop, watching yourself. What's different today? What might have pulled me down? Why am I happy? What's good? How did I react to it? We live our lives so unconscious, and it's so important to live consciously, to become aware of the miracles that are our bodies. I mean, every time I interview an expert, every day, I just am fascinated with what we're able to do if we pay attention to it, if we respect it, if we appreciate our bodies and what they can do for us. All right, let's give some details about what this program is, because there's always, yes, you got all this free stuff, but let's talk about what else is in the program. All right, so this program, we're talking now, but it actually starts in another month on March 29th. Want to give a little bit of time for warm up. If you wanted to join us today, don't worry, we won't leave you hanging forever. We'll touch base with you because, again, I don't want to just leave anybody in the cold once you've started. And again, congratulations for saying, I want to be happier. It's like, I'm Sarah Heiner and I want to be happier, right? That's a big step. It's a big first step to say, wow, maybe I really do deserve to take time for me. Maybe I really do deserve, maybe there is another side. I regularly ask my kids, am I really grumpy? They go, no, not really, but sometimes. So we're not even aware of ourselves. So to just become self-aware enough to realize I could feel better. I do spend more time complaining than I do feeling good. And that doesn't feel so good. So to want to do that. So it starts March 29th. So we will keep everybody in the loop. So $9.99 a month. That's 33 cents a day. Rebecca, my great editor and my great content person, did the math actually. So 33 cents a day. And that's actually 50% off of the regular price. And with joining the Awakening Happiness program, besides getting to see me 3 days a week, which, by the way, let me just say, if you join and we have these sessions 3 days a week and you go, I don't have that time commitment, I can't do that every 3 days. Doesn't matter because we've got the library. We'll videotape everything. So you can always go back to it. You can go back to it if you miss it. You can go back to it if you loved it, if you remembered one of the exercises that we did or the experiences and you don't remember how to do it. We'll have that all archived so you can always go back and be able to see it again. And of course, in direct response, there are always free bonuses when you buy anything. I talked about journaling. Well, actually, handwriting, I think it's important. There's a difference between writing things and typing things. So we actually have a beautifully designed journal. This is the cover. I don't, because they're hot, they're at the printer, so I don't have, but this is beautiful. I love this design. You can't see what's on the inside because it's just the cover, but they're beautifully designed pages. Again, as Rebecca was describing, that for each day, one page, it's not a lot. What's your daily goals? What's great? What was great? What was troublesome? Go back to great. It's super simple. Pages also, if you want to explore something, if you want to dig deeper, there we have that opportunity in there as well. So you will actually get hard, real in your hands, tangible journal with your membership. There is an immunity program. Rebecca and I put together over the summer, as COVID was so, just bigger than ever. Earlier in the summer, when everybody was trying to figure it out as much as they did, obviously it's still an enormous thing. We're still in our homes. We put together a series with two top doctors, Jacob Teitelbaum and William Lee, about boosting your immunity. So we put together, Rebecca, why don't you talk for a second? We about the program. We've got 5 video session, then that will be available to everybody.
Yeah, it's a great program. Dr. William Lee, who is an amazing researcher and physician, he wrote a book called Eat to Beat Disease, and he talks in the first session about the immune system in general, and he does it in a way, he breaks it down so that it's really just this kind of fascinating narrative of like working your way through your body, that he shows everything that's happening. And so that's the first session. And then the second session he does is about food and the amazing foods that are available that can help strengthen your immunity. And the choices, and we actually have as a handout his shopping list, Dr. William Lee's shopping list. So that's a wonderful complement to that particular video.
Then that help make you be strong, and the foods actually, the sugars, the fats, all of
those, yeah,
health crushers.
Absolutely, and happiness crushers, by the way, too. Yeah. Then Dr. Teitelbaum talks about stress, and you touched on that in the context of happiness, but how stress does such terrible damage to the body and impairs the immune system. He talks about the importance of sleep. He talks about exercise. There are different videos for each of these elements of immune boosting and optimizing. So it's a really great program, and there are handouts that go along with it as well. So,
and let me just say, and I can't say this enough, in the land of COVID, thank goodness for the vaccine. It's superhuman that the vaccine has come along. We've got with masks and social distancing and all that sort of stuff. The one thing that they don't talk about as much as I would love for them to talk about is what can you do? If your immune system is working well, then you're not as fearful of getting sick. If your immune system is fed properly, if it's strong. So yes, wear your mask. Yes, be careful. Yes, wash your hands. Yes, get the vaccine if that's what, if you think that that's right for you. But above everything else, before all of that, strengthen your body. Our bodies know, we defend against germs every day, millions of germs. You walk outside, there's tons of germs that are out there and that are up your nose every day, the PCR test. There's tons of germs that are there that your body fights off. The stronger you can make yourself. So this was a tremendous, I was so proud of this program that we did. We also then have 10 bottom line articles. These are some of the top experts that we've ever talked to over the years about happiness, just as a little kind of kickoff, little fun kickoff for it. And then we have the Bottom Line Wellness Store, where a lot of people want to follow the advice of our doctors, vitamin D, vitamin Z, getting zinc, different natural things that some of our natural practitioners suggest. And then it's confusing. So we developed a store where you can trust that everything is organic, everything is safe, everything is high grade, so that it's not confusing. You go go buy some vitamin D, and you get a small bottle for $20, and you get a jug of it at Costco for $5. I'm exaggerating, I don't know prices. But we took the stress out of that, because you really just want to be able to trust and not be stressed to be able to do all this. So there's a membership, 10% discount for all members of Awakening Happiness at the store. Let me share with you, just because vulgar self-promotion, a couple of our great experts just were kind enough to share what their thoughts on the program. Bernie Siegel, I don't know if you know who he is, but he is one of the mentors and great practitioners in mind-body medicine, worked with cancer patients. So you can read it yourself. I'll read it. The Awakening Happiness Program is what everyone can use, and Bottom Line makes it easily available. And Bernie's really been a tremendous, tremendous expert and friend of Bottom Lines for many years. And he really revolutionized cancer care. And then we have Lori Steele-Smith, who is a phenomenal naturopathic physician. She's one of our bloggers. So the Awakening Happiness Program provides participants with terrific insights and cutting edge tools to help them transform their lives. I can't think of an organization more capable of inspiring lasting contentment. So these are just a couple of the experts that we have in our paddock of tremendous experts. All right, with that, does anybody have any questions that you have for me or Rebecca about the program, about what I was talking about happiness, about your fears of happiness, about your annoying children who take away from your happiness, or your if onlys, you could be happy? Let's see. Give people a moment of happiness. In the meanwhile, you know what I realized? I don't have a URL up here. So Awake Happy Today is actually the URL, the website where we have more information on awakening happiness. It'll be in the chat box if you want to learn more about it. Let's see. Do I have any questions from anybody? Did you have fun? Do you feel happier? Do you feel more in control?
You know, Sarah, as you are waiting there, I just wanted to mention one thing that I was thinking about as you were going through the end of the list there. You know, this isn't like a college course where you have to put in, you know, a certain amount of study time, or I mean, you touched on this, but it's really not a huge time commitment. And I think that the other thing that is important for people to know is that it's fun and it's an easy program to do, and that this is something that it's like, you know, we're more or less taking people by the hand and saying, you know, here are the things that you can do to increase your happiness in a way that I don't think anybody else is presenting it these days. So just wanted to throw that in.
I agree. And I think, again, the important thing is that this is not a happiness diet, right? That
Right.
It's just enough. It's not too much, not too little. It's kind of like Goldilocks. It's just right. So I have a question from somebody about asking if are people born happy or otherwise. Now there's a whole, you know, nature nurture about who we are and how we are. This is just Sarah's theory of life. Again, I think that babies are born happy. I think that we as children are free. And I think that our unhappiness evolves as we've gotten constricted through the pressures of the world, through social pressures. You know, every time your kid goes out on the playground and, you know, falls and then gets criticized, or anytime somebody, you know, fails a test and they get, you know, we shrink through life. When we feel like we can't please others, we all want to please people. We all want to get love. We all want to be acknowledged. And every single time we don't get that, it shrinks. One thing that I notice, go to a playground one time and watch little kids fall. You don't want to watch them fall, but like see a kid fall. And the first thing they do is they look to their mother for the cue. Am I okay? And does the mother encourage them, and assuming that they just skinned their knee, nothing's major, right? If they just tripped and fell and they look to wonder how they should do. And we teach the kids, like, should they be afraid? Should they, you know, do you need ice? Do you need Advil? I've watched mothers do that. And I've watched mothers say, you're okay, get up. And they do that. And so that I think that we teach them, so that it's what we learn. It's what happens to us through our lives that suffocate that happiness, but it's inside of us. We just have to rediscover it. Our bodies, the hormones, that machinery that we have now, it's what we had when we were young. We just have to get that working properly. Someone asked the question, do I have to journal to join the program? You do not have to do anything. It is all up to you. I think that journaling is a really important part of it. I think if you've never journaled, it would be a really interesting exercise to try it. And again, journaling, I'm not talking about longhand prose. And if you don't like to write, okay, you could do it on the computer as well. There really is something to writing. What I did, I could show you all my notes. I scribbled. This is how how I prepare all through writing. There's a connection between your hand and your head and your heart. And I'm sure Rebecca has studies about that, but I'll tell you that it's true. Again, it's quick lists. It's not longhand journaling. I have for many years, thanks to a coach that I worked with, I do, we'll call it pre-pave my day. You set your day. What's your intention of the day? What's it going to be like? How do I want it to be? And then I've got my list of stuff, but it's how do I want my day to be? What do I want to set it up with? And then she did an interesting thing. She taught me an interesting exercise, was at the end of the day, you review and say, how was my day? And even if it wasn't so good, you rewrite it as though it was, because again, you don't want to end your time in yuck. You want to end your time feeling uplifted. How many months is the program? Forever. It's ongoing. It's month to month. You can join it. It's just a continuation of experience. So as long as you join the group and want to continue to participate with the group, it's your choice. 1 month, 2 months, 8 months, 40 months. It's totally your choice. It's just joining us and being part of it. Can get a copy of this recording because you came late? Yes, you can. We are going to be sending it out to everybody tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then the next day. So watch your email. We're going to send this to everybody and share this. Please, please, please feel free to share this with your friends and family, anyone that you know, because I'll bet that some of you may actually know some people that might actually need some more joy and happiness in their life. All right, I've kept you longer. I promised 30 minutes and it's almost an hour. So I apologize, but I had so much fun with you. So just a reminder, awakehappytoday.com. Look in the chat. Thank you all so much for being here. I wish you all the best in your life. I wish you all the happiness, and please do come back and be with us.